Hello and welcome to episode 108 of the Wisdom from the Akasha podcast. My name is Suzie, I am your host, and I am an Akashic Records teacher and practitioner. Now, a few of you have reached out to me via email in respect of one-on-one sessions, so I just want to cover that before I get into today's topic. In respect of one-on-one sessions with me, there are essentially two things that you can do. So the first thing is you can check out the mentorship programs. I have a mentorship program specifically designed for Akashic Records practitioners who want support there. And then I have an Akashic-led spiritual mentorship, which is going to support you wherever you are at on your spiritual journey. And of course, both of those programs are Akashic Records-led work. So during those 6-month programs, we're going to utilize the Akashic Records for guidance, for energy healing, for energy clearing, and in some instances, soul retrieval as well. So that's working obviously very intimately with me for a period of 6 months in either of those two programs. I am currently doing the alignment calls for the summer intake for those. So if you do want to join one of those mentorship programs, then please do make sure that you have registered your interest and I will be in touch to make an alignment call with you. The other option that I have is a waitlist. So the waitlist is for single session Akashic Records readings, Akashic Records clearing, or the combination session, which is both. That waitlist will be informed directly via email as and when one-off sessions become available. But because I am very busy with my mentees and with my students, those spaces are very, very limited and they're just done on a first come, first serve basis. So I will pop the link in the show notes to the mentorship programs and also to the one-off sessions. Today, I want to give an introduction to the concepts of out-of-body experiences, so OBEs, astral projection, and remote viewing. And I say that this is going to be an introduction because, of course, all of these topics are very big and I could do multiple podcast episodes on them. If you are interested in hearing more about any of these, then please do drop me a comment on Spotify and let me know that you want to hear more. But for today, I just want to do an overview of these because a lot of the time these terms get used in the spiritual community and there might be a little bit of confusion that people have around what each of these are, and also to help you know if you are having these experiences. So the purpose of today is to go through what they are, what's going on from a spiritual and energetic perspective, and how to know if you've experienced them. First up, we have out-of-body experiences. And out-of-body experiences are not the soul leaving the body. I always want to make that very clear. What is happening in an out-of-body experience is there is a spontaneous leaving of the body by the astral body. Now, your astral body is one of the 7 energy bodies that we talk about when we talk about the light grid. And when you have an out-of-body experience, your astral body is temporarily leaving the physical form, and it is spontaneous, which means that you have not consciously done anything to make this happen. Now, this can happen in a whole host of circumstances. So some people will report out-of-body experiences during surgeries, during near-death experiences. Very common when people are in comas. It can happen when people are experiencing extreme stress, or even when people are doing their spiritual practice. So at meditation, during sound baths, even when doing their yoga practice. Okay, so it can happen at any time, but it is this spontaneous leaving of the form by the astral form. Scientists have studied quite in depth out-of-body experiences, and of course, materialist scientists have very much come to the conclusion that these are just sensory mismatches or brain simulations, but they're very well documented in respect of the similarities that people experience during an out-of-body experience. And lots of other scientists will concur that this is something that happens, that this is an experience that people have, that their consciousness is leaving their physical form and experiencing this out-of-body experience. In an out-of-body experience, it's very normal for the astral body to stay very close to the physical form. So in an out-of-body experience, lots of people will report being able to see their physical form, sometimes hovering over it. They will describe a feeling of expansiveness, and they'll often talk about a silver cord which links their astral form to their physical form. Of course, what's happening is the consciousness, rather than focusing on the physical reality through the physical 5 senses, is focusing on the astral reality using the astral organs. That's what's happening, and that's why they're having this experience. A really good book on out-of-body experiences, if you haven't read it yet, is a book by Anita Morijani called Dying to Be Me, and it's her experience of being out of body for significant periods of time during an illness, I believe it was, that she was experiencing, and her being able to hear everything that was going on with the doctors and her family members and everything that she experienced. So I definitely recommend that if you're interested in learning more about out-of-body experiences, or if maybe you've had one and you want to understand it more deeply. Astral projection, on the other hand, is the conscious ejection of the astral body into the astral realm. So the big difference is out-of-body is spontaneous. You haven't done anything to make it happen. Astral projection is I'm going to consciously work on ejecting out my astral form into the astral realm. As always, if you're unsure as to what I mean by the astral plane, there is an episode that I did earlier called The Introduction to the Astral Realm, and it's a really good place to start if this idea of there being an astral realm is a new concept to you. I'll pop that link into the show notes. So when somebody is astral projecting, again, what they are doing is they are focusing their consciousness, the consciousness that they are, through the astral form and the astral sense, instead of what we usually do, which is focusing on our physical reality using the physical senses. Now, even in your waking reality, while you're focusing through your physical senses on physical reality, you still have an astral body and you still have astral senses. What we're doing in astral projection is we're focusing all of the energy and the attention through that form rather than the physical form that we inhabit. You may sometimes see this referred to as different things. So you might hear about astral travel, about soul journeys, or about spiritual travel. These are all referring to the same thing, astral projection. And the concept of people astral projecting and using astral projection in various different ways to enhance and evolve from a spiritual perspective exists across spiritual traditions and esoteric traditions worldwide. So this isn't just associated with one specific spiritual tradition. The term astral projection was coined by the Theosophists, but it does exist across all traditions. Yogis would class astral projection as one of the siddhis, and I'll do another episode on the siddhis. But for the yogis, astral projection was not something that you worked towards or that you tried to do. For the yogis, this was a consequence of other spiritual work, spiritual practices, and spiritual development that you were doing. Emanuel Swedenborg writes about this in the 1700s, and later we have individuals such as Edgar Cayce, who is obviously very prominent in the Akashic Records world, and Robert Monroe, who I've talked about when we discussed the topic of Loosh. So the key difference between astral projection and an out-of-body experience is that one is a conscious, intentional experience and can therefore be repeated, and the other is just something that happens, so it's spontaneous. Whereas both astral projection and spontaneous out-of-body experiences happen in those instances that I talked about earlier, a really common experience for people who are astral projectors is to go into astral projection in the in-between sleep and wakefulness states. So either going to sleep at nighttime or waking up in the morning in that in-between stage. Because astral projection is more intentional, more conscious, there's usually a reason that someone is astral projecting. So maybe they want to go and visit a specific location in the astral realm. With an out-of-body experience, most people will often stay by the body in their natural surroundings. In both astral projection and out-of-body experiences, because technically it's the same thing happening to the body, so the astral body is coming out of the physical form, the signs are basically the same. The first thing that is most common for all people who have these experiences is this feeling of vibration or tingling within the form. So they still feel like they have a form, but it's a very, very vibrationally fast form. It feels lighter than the form that you are in when you're in physical form, but it does have this vibratory, buzzing, tingling sensations. Of course, with that goes this feeling of looseness of the astral form. And that can be for a period after they've had the out-of-body experience, or if you're a regular astral projector, it can be something that you're quite used to having, as in this very loose connection to the physical form is what's happening there. Traveling to different places within the astral realm does happen in out-of-body experiences, but of course more so with astral projectors. And same with interactions with different beings. So again, this can happen in an out-of-body experience and in astral projection. But a lot of the time, people who are seasoned, practiced astral projectors will come into contact with a whole host of different types of beings, different energies, and different realms as well. Another commonality between the two is this feeling of flying or floating. And lots of people who are natural astral projectors will actually have memories in childhood of either having a dream and flying within the dream, or actually flying in reality, in their conscious waking reality. That's very common in someone who's naturally a good astral projector. Another thing that can happen while in astral projection specifically is this ability to manipulate the surroundings. So similar to someone who can lucid dream, as in you have some control when you're in the dream space, the astral projectors are able to manipulate certain things in that reality. Now, a book recommendation for this one is the book by Sylvan Muldoon, I believe it is. I'll put the title in the show notes. And this was a book written with an individual, and they were doing comprehensive studies on astral projection. So definitely worth taking a look at. Astral projection and out-of-body experiences have both been studied quite a lot. So out-of-body experiences more recently, and astral projection itself as a phenomenon was late 1800s, early 1900s. Both have been studied in quite some depth and observed and repeated in the case of astral projection. This, of course, leads the way to a more modern form of using this type of function, which is remote viewing, which I'll cover now. With remote viewing, technically it's not astral projection or an out-of-body experience, but I do believe that the work and studies undertaken on both astral projection and out-of-body experience helped to pave the way for remote viewing. Remote viewing comes in the 1970s, and it was a term used by the Stanford Research Institute, and it was to do with a project that the CIA had called the Stargate Project. And this was essentially during the Cold War between the USA and what was then the USSR. They both had programs where they were trying to gather intelligence on the other party using psychics. So there was a lot of strange things that were going on back in those times with these three-letter agencies. And there is still on the CIA website a PDF about how to remote view, essentially. But this is where we really see remote viewing coming into the forefront. And the reason I say it's different to astral projection and out-of-body experiences is because in remote viewing, the individual is not learning how to leave the body. They're not learning how to eject the astral body. what they are doing is they are consciously focusing on a place, and that was usually done with coordinates, for example, and then to describe what is there. So this was essentially used as a form of spying. I don't have any book recommendations on this one, so if you do have a book recommendation on this topic, please do feel free to share it in the comments on Spotify for other listeners. But it was a very methodical process that was being done, and there was lots of training done, and lots of people still do remote viewing to this day. So there's the overview of what these three things are. So you can see the interconnectedness and also, I hope, see the difference. And now I just want to offer a couple of things to consider if you're feeling called to investigate or try any of these methods yourself. I don't teach astral projection. As you know, the Akashic Records are the higher spiritual realms, but I do think it's important for any practitioner to have a good working understanding of the astral realm, the astral plane, and what it consists of and all of that, because a lot of the people that practitioners work with are having astral realm experiences and do need to have an understanding of that. But I just want to make it clear that Akashic Records work is not astral plane work. All of that being said, there are plenty of amazing books, creators, YouTube videos on all of these topics, and you can spend hours and hours and hours researching and looking at all of this stuff. And if that is something that your magnetic center is calling for you to do, then please do that. But I do just have a couple of points I want to note. So my first point is I want you to be really honest with yourself in respect of if you're feeling the pull to investigate this, maybe learn how to do some of these things. Ask yourself, what is your intention behind it? So, for example, what is my intention behind wanting to learn how to astral project? Is it something that you really do feel will be helpful on your spiritual journey? Or is it something that your ego is using to distract you with or give you a sense of superiority over other people? Be really, really clear with yourself about your intentions. And this is not about you berating yourself or being mean to yourself. And it's not about saying that, for example, astral projection is bad. It absolutely can be really beneficial to people. It can offer people insights, healing opportunities, an expanded consciousness. It can be amazing, but we always have to be on the lookout for spiritual ego in all of our attempts to expand our knowledge and our understanding of things. So what's the intention behind it? The second point I want you to consider is that remember that these techniques aren't for everybody in this lifetime. One of the most amazing things about planet Earth is that there's so many different levels of consciousness and there's so many different stages of soul evolution that people are at. So many different things that they can experience here. It isn't that we all come to Earth to do the same thing, nor is it that everybody has come here to, for example, learn how to astral project. And that doesn't make anybody more spiritual than anybody else, okay? Your soul is where it's at. It's going through its evolutionary experience. And you might not feel called to work with these types of techniques. It may be that you've already worked with these techniques in a previous lifetime and you have no desire, no use for them in this lifetime. It may be that you really feel called to work with these techniques, and that's also okay. But make sure that if you are going to embark upon this, that it's something that you're embarking upon to evolve your soul, to expand your consciousness, to help you heal, to help you grow, and not to give yourself this sense of superiority or feeling better than other people. So I hope that this has given you a little bit of an overview and an introduction into these terms so that when you come across them on social media and online, you're able to know what it is that people are talking about. If you do want me to go into any of those subjects in a deeper way, then just drop it in the comments in Spotify and I'll be sure to add it to my episode list for 2026. I, of course, will see you next week for the next episode.